A lot of people ask us how much are the houses selling for, how big are the houses. They want to know what the home looks like, just because when most people, generally speaking, when they think of real estate, they think of buildings, right?
What does the future look like in the next 2 to 5 years? Because when you pick up a piece of land, you guys know this, it's not entitled usually, so it's still going to take me at least a year, if not 2 years, just to get it entitled. Depends on where it's at.
From a land perspective, how do you find the right pieces of land? Because a lot of these towns are pretty built, right? So how do you move something, maybe that 40 acres that hasn't been built yet? How are you guys the ones that are capable of basically moving that forward, if that makes sense?
We're building lots of businesses. We're obviously in this country, largest transfers of wealth. Baby boomers just coming of age. If you buy a business, if you have
Welcome back to the KB podcast. Last episode, we dove deep into how to analyze deals in the real estate market and make money with little to no money down. And the feedback from you guys was amazing. Before we jump in, I just want to take a moment to give thanks to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I celebrate him personally every day, but especially now as we approach his birthday, it's the real reason for the season. Coming up on the 25th. So now today, we're taking it one step farther though. We're going to break down how to find and analyze land deals, specifically foundation of every successful real estate project, whether you're new to the game or scaling up. The episode is packed with practical steps you can use right now to uncover opportunities that others overlook. And joining me for this conversation, I have two of my colleagues, sharp minds in the business, Daniel Patrick and Andrew Clements. Today, together, we're going to unpack the strategies, red flags, and mindset behind successful land development deals. So let's get into it. Let me jump over here real quick. So it looks like we're kind of going to focus in on how to find the real estate deals and analyze those. Daniel, I'll let you get started first.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people ask us, they'll ask me like, well, how much are the houses selling for? How big are the houses? They want to know what the home looks like, just because when most people, like generally speaking, when they think of real estate, they think of buildings, right? Houses. And I always, have to explain to them that like it really doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter to us. Like we definitely want to be involved with a good product. And I think a lot of our builders, including us, like we have, I would say we have a higher quality product, but I have to explain to them that although we care, like our portion a lot of the times is just dealing with the land development. And when we go into negotiations with a builder and we agree on a price per finished lot, that's not all of it. We don't just care about the numbers. We care about the location, because we need to know that the land that we have is in high demand. And I kind of walk them through some of the different KPIs. And I think that would be a good talking point for today's session. First off, I always mention 5-star school districts, which is, I would say 9 times out of 10, it's pretty much a non-negotiable for us. Kylie, would you say that's an accurate statement?
No, absolutely. And you could dive in a little bit more reason why, but 5-star schools are huge for us. We do have a few of them that we do that are not 5-star schools, but there's a big reason for that, and I'll jump in afterwards.
Yeah,
sorry.
And I'm curious. I'm curious about that as well, because I know there's a couple.
Yeah.
And I really haven't picked your brain on why those projects were winners. But aside from that, like you have to kind of back out and look at what we're doing. Like how, the reason that we're making money is because we're chipping away at a need. So the demand for homes far outweighs the supply. That just doesn't mean you can build a house anywhere. And so the other thing that we look at is like, we want to make sure that the people in that area can actually afford the homes that are going up, because it wouldn't make sense to build a $750,000 home in an incredibly low income area for obvious reasons. It would just sit there and nobody is going to want to live in that area, just, in this house. And it's hurting the property values. But anyways, what's the term for that, Kylie? Like is there like a unit of measure for like people's earning power relative to the home prices? I think there's a term for it.
There is, just depending on, what business it is though. So like, for example, Fisher Homes calls it their UMR report. So that runs a detailed report, which you could pay for these types of reports. So when I did retail development, it was the same thing. You run all your reports, which usually cost between $3,000 to $20,000, depends on what you're doing. But you run your reports. What kind of traffic study, the traffic studies, what kind kind of population density? What's the average income? What's the growth rate? They run all these different studies. What's a school, which that's huge for us. That's not huge for everybody, but what school districts look like? Are they 5-star schools? What's the, what do those kids go to do after school? So there's a lot of things you can take into play on there.
Yeah.
That's very important for us on the vast majority of our projects because we sell in mostly, not gonna say always high-end areas, but definitely nice areas, higher class for sure.
Yeah. And I think, the proof in the pudding, so to speak, would be the absorption rate, which is like the speed in which those homes are snatched up. If we see a really healthy absorption rate, it's pretty safe to assume that people can afford houses in that part of town, which is another thing that I know that we look at. But not only that,
let me jump in real quick on that.
Yeah, go for it.
Just what you're saying. So like an absorption rate, you're right. But like, for example, you get to a price point that you're over that, for example, Chesterfield, you get too far over that 1 million, especially 2 million. You're at a price point where your absorption rate drops tremendously. Even though you're in a great area, it's just a lot of people can't afford a $3, $4, $5 million home. They're right at that $2 million marker, and then it really starts to drop off big time. So price point is huge as well.
So I guess it would still behoove a builder to build a $2 million house just because even though the absorption rate is low, it's still economically feasible for them to wait it out for someone to buy it, even though they're sitting on it. Is that the simple way of putting it pretty much?
If you know exactly the same thing we were talking about on the UMR report, you know what your absorption rate is. So that house that would usually sell within, let's call it 30 days, it might take you, 4 months on average to sell it because it's a $3 million house. It's just the time frame. And you got to calculate all that in because holding $3 million in overhead can be expensive. You're spending, $20,000, $30,000 a month just on that one house on overhead cost. So,
and I'm sure there are situations where the UMR report might not reflect the exact ecosystem that they're looking for. However, if there is some sort of event in the future that is going to dictate a massive inflow, like a new sort of industrial campus or some sort of, business center, in the case of Wright City that we've got a project going out there, it's like a meat packing plant. And I don't know, do you think Fisher Homes would have, in the case of Wright City, which is, we've got a project out there, Serenity Woods, I think is the name of the community. I'm sure that had a solid UMR, but they've got an eye towards the future because there's a meat packing plant going out there. I think last time I talked to you, you said it was going to create like 5,000 additional jobs, something like that. Am I off there?
A little bit. They said between 2,000 to 4,000, but there's also I forget what it's called, but there's a huge, and what is it called? I keep wanting to call it IT, but it's a digital place over there where it's going to produce billions of dollars as well. That's going to go right there in the Forestdale area. So just right east of Wright City. So there's all the main lines that run right through there, which I didn't know that, was the kind of the hub of the United States right there. So between
5-star school districts, good absorption rate, people can actually afford the houses, looking at the inflow population growth. I mean, is there any other key performance indicators that we really focus on before deciding, okay, this is the one?
Well, there's a bunch of things you could look at. Obviously, infrastructure, what is the growth going to happen? Like what's coming into that area, future. If you know that there's I forget the name of the company up in St. Louis, but there's something that Amazon's putting up there, and it's probably in the next 2 to 5 years. I bet all the land around that area is going to be bought up. Same thing in Oklahoma. I know there's a big old park that's supposed to be kind of like Disney down in Oklahoma somewhere. If you know where it's going, which we do, we can start buying land around there and start, predicting future developments. So that's a huge thing to look at as well. What does the future look like in the next 2 to 5 years? Because when you pick up a piece of land, you guys know this, it's not entitled usually. So it's still going to take me at least a year, if not 2 years, just to get it entitled. Depends on where it's at.
Yeah, which I think is a good transition kind of over to the zoning piece of the equation, right? And to me, my question is kind of twofold. Like, go a little bit deeper into how it, how long it takes you, and basically the necessary steps that are necessary to get something rezoned. But also, I think a lot of people think America's pretty built out, right? Obviously, there's some kind of different spots. So how do you guys identify this is a good spot? This is like from a land perspective, how do you find the right pieces of land? Because a lot of these towns are pretty built, right? So how do you move something, maybe that 40 acres that hasn't been built yet? How are you guys the ones that are capable of basically moving that forward, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so a couple things there though. So first off, I don't think America's built out at all. Honestly, you could drive sometimes 10 hours and all you see is like farmland.
100%.
I know that sounds crazy to
I,
some people,
I
but
know that, but I think that a lot of people think that, like,
well, if you're in Miami or
Anybody who's made the drive to Denver from St. Louis knows that to be true. That's
yeah, you can see farmland
go through
forever.
the middle of Florida, man, and there's nothing there, right? Like,
oh my god.
Well, so that's a great point, though. So, like, you could drive an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours without basically seeing anything but farmland. But then you hit one of the bigger cities like Kansas City or St. Louis. There's obviously many things we look for at that point. So, obviously, St. Louis is expanding tremendously. Daniel's from this area, so am I. So, we know the area very well. I lived in Florida as well. So, there are certain areas I know down there as well, in like Central Florida. But for Missouri, the St. Louis district, we know it's expanding and it's growing tremendously. There is not a lot of areas, like especially Chesterfield, there's just not a lot of land. But doesn't mean you can't be creative. So when I was doing retail development, this is how I got started. Is I would go assimilate. So I'd find stuff like, an old church that was for sale or something like that, or maybe it's not for sale, and I would assimilate it with other parcels that are around it because I know the value of that area, and I would get it rezoned, for what we needed for residential. So that was huge. Like, you got to be creative. So, and we found a lot of the best brokers out there that know how to think like that. So they look at something like, hey, so they see it on the ArcGIS map, and they'll be just researching. You can stare at that thing for hours, the ArcGIS right here in St. Louis area. And each county has its own. But you sit there and look at it like, okay, I need something in Eureka because it's a 5-star school district. We've already built in Wildwood. We already built in Chesterfield. We already built in Town and Country. So we built all around there, but we want something in Eureka. So they'll go through there and ArcGIS it and specifically find any parcels of land. And as you click on it, you see who the owner is. You can see how long they've owned it. You see a lot of details about it. And you just got to sometimes be cold calling or cold marketing, which we do a lot of that. But we have teams of people that do that. We don't do that internally anymore.
When you say cold calling, are you targeting? My knee-jerk reaction to that is, well, you must be targeting off-market properties then if you're cold calling. Is that, and I mean, is that where the majority of our parcels come from, is through that off-market funnel? Or like, has anybody ever cruised Zillow and was like, hey, this is a good spot, and then you just call the owner and it's, easy peasy, or no?
Well, it's 50-50. So, we do find some parcels that are on market, but you got to remember, anybody that's a top national builder, they're going to be looking at what we're looking at. They already have most of the same criteria that we do. Any of the top guys, because they're looking for the same things, because those are what's going to sell quick and they're going to create the highest value and the highest return on investment. Missouri is a little bit harder than most markets, but yeah, I mean, keep it simple. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And I'm sure, like, looking at what other people are doing is also a pretty good indicator. Kylie, have you ever been woken up to an area that maybe you had previously overlooked just because you saw another builder just absolutely crush it?
I'll be honest with you. I went to a school in Warrenton, and it's 4 miles from Wright City. I don't really want to say the words, but I thought Wright City was kind of a hole in the wall. Is what it is. But that was 20, whatever. I don't remember how old. 23 years ago when I went to school there. I lived there about 20 years ago. I just would have never thought anything about it. Wouldn't have thought anything about it. But I've drove out there a few times. It just I didn't see the growth. But you do see, like, okay, you got, what is it, O'Fallon, St. Charles, they're completely packed on Highway 70. At west, Wentzville is just blown up huge. That's where my parents work, General Motors. And so what you got west from there on Highway 70 is Forestel, which isn't much. There's, I think, a truck stop. And then you got Wright City, which is the next big one in Warrenton. So it just keeps, hammering down Highway 70 and just keeps packing it out. So that's the next logical area where it's going to expand, because Wentzville is almost out of land.
Yeah. There's no place to go. I mean, especially St. Charles is just absolutely slammed. That's cool. And so, I mean, for someone who's like wanting to sink their teeth in, it sounds like their first best route is really just to grind it out. And I mean, do you look at, how do you even know that these parcels are off market? Do you just look at a map and just say, okay, contact the owner and just kind of see if they're open to selling it? Like, who actually negotiates that? And let me just back up. I'm kind of wanting to focus on like what that first step would be for someone wanting to get into this. Like, it sounds like it's just cold calling, just a downright hustle.
Well, so you could just go warm market. So let's say you start warm market. You're still going to find amazing deals. Like we found the Overlook. It was on market partially. Those people were on and off, but they wanted like $14 million for that piece of land. We have it in our contract for $6 million. So they were just very unrealistic. So it took us over a year to get that one in our contract.
What was the 14 million to 6 million? Like, what was their, how did you get through to those people? I think that's really, really interesting.
You just keep submitting offers, and honestly, and then you just let it sit sometimes. But you got to it's all about timing, because I have other businesses we're trying to grow, but it's timing. You can't procrastinate on stuff like this. Someone else will pick that piece of land up, but the numbers have to make sense. And really anything much more than 6 million, we might have been able to go 7 to 8, but 6 million, that's where, we felt comfortable at. And we know we sell those houses for over $1 million. So we're comfortable at that price point. But then you got to reverse math it at that point, and you're kind of guesstimating a little bit even after you meet with city council, because just because they think you could do 103 lots, obviously you guys seen it drop down to 81 lots because of topography. So there are some variables in there that can change things.
What would you say, like, give us a range on acreage for most projects, right? Is it
So that's all over the place. We'll do anything. Like we found 8 acres down in Fenton. We're doing 22 villas and 18 townhomes over there. That's closer to your neck of the woods, Daniel. Yeah, so I think it'll be a great setup, but it's only literally, I think, 6 acres of buildable, 8 total acres, but only 6 of it's actually buildable. That's probably our smallest project, but then we're doing one that has, over 300 acres where it's going to be somewhere between 500 to 1,000 homes.
And you're talking about the High Ridge area.
It's pretty close. So
okay.
Fenton is just right east.
Oh yeah, Fenton. Is that one of the ones that aren't a 5-star school district?
It's definitely not 5-star.
Okay. So then why was that one the right one? Because I know, again, majority of the times that's something that we look at, but this had other things going on. What were those?
So great question, actually. So Wright City, obviously, what that was because of all of the retail that was coming in. Fenton is honestly a tester. We think the market's going to grow tremendously there because there's a lot of land available there. They do have a nice infrastructure in their internal town, but they don't have a lot of the key things that we usually look for. So it's a tester. But we got the land so cheap. I think we got it for $290,000 for this little parcel.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a cheap parcel. So we'll build them cheap. And I don't mean they're not quality. We'll just build them cheaper. They won't have, stone and brick and all that stuff on them. So they'll be more for that. Let's say it's first time home buyers or someone just starting their family. So a husband and wife, maybe one kid, they'll be cute little places. They'll mimic our really beautiful stuff. They just won't have that brick and stone. So it's a tester. And we usually don't do many of those. Those are kind of 1 or 2 going at a time because you got to test the area, see how your profit margins are. If you're not making I would say at least 20% gross profit on the vertical side. If you're not making that minimally, then it might not be worth our time.
Just this is a very quick question. Just ask about the average, size of the land in the project in its entirety. What about the average lot size? Is that a quarter acre? Is that a tenth of an acre? Is it a full acre? Like, what are most of these single family or those, kind of duplex lots? How much land are those sitting on typically?
So those are very drastic differences. So depends on where you're at jurisdiction wise. So let's go with what's one of the larger ones, which Wildwood, where I live at. If you're not in town center, it's 3 acres minimal.
That's what my house is too. Yeah.
If you're in town center, you can get, I think, reduced all the way down to, and this is per Joe Vunage, city council guy here in Wildwood, we could get down to 4,000 to 5,000 square feet, which is super small. You're looking at a tenth of an acre at that point. But that depends if you're doing like a villa setup, which we're working on something like that. And we might even do a tiny home. I never thought I would do a tiny home, but I'll keep you guys in the loop if that comes something we do.
Tiny homes. That sounds exciting. What?
It's kind of interesting.
Is that like? I'm very curious because I think I may have heard you mention tiny homes in the past. I know people are. I know you can make fistfuls of cash in certain parts of the country building tiny homes, especially like on the short-term rental territory. But I mean, Kylie, is this kind of another just like fun side experiment for you? Well, what's the vision there, bud?
There's no real vision there. So 2 things. It does help brand you a little bit more because we'd be working on 2 different subdivisions that would be tiny homes. So first and foremost, but secondly, I had a meeting with city council, same people, Joe and all them. And they support it big time, which I kind of was shocked, honestly. So
did you tell them you were surprised?
Well, yeah, Joe knows that. I'm friendly with Joe and all of them. Yeah, after you meet with city council, 50 times, you kind of get to know them pretty well.
What was what got them so excited about tiny homes?
It isn't necessarily excited about just tiny homes. It's this market, this area pretty well. The price points are just really high for especially a single mom or someone that, is just trying to downsize at this point. You're looking at probably on average, and it's not expensive in my mind too much, but it's a lot higher than what it used to be, but it's $700,000 give or take, in this area. So if you could build them a tiny home and they could be in for the, let's call it somewhere between 300,000 to 400,000, that's tremendously different than a $700,000 house.
300,000 to 400,000 for a tiny home still seems like
it's a lot of money.
Pretty expensive. Like, how tiny are we talking about? Like 800 square feet? Or
yeah. Well, yeah, because you got to remember the land here is not cheap. So
right.
You take it down to Miami, it's going to be probably a $600,000 tiny home or $700,000 tiny home. Jeez. Just because it's all about the land cost at that point.
Yeah. I mean, also, like, I kind of have it in my head. It seems like it might make sense if someone just really likes a piece of land, but they're tapped Like they can buy the acreage, put a tiny home on there, and then, once they are a little bit more established, they can still build on that parcel. But I'm sure the ones that you're talking about are still on those. I mean, I'm imagining like a subdivision, eighth of an acre lot type situation with a tiny home on it.
Yeah, unfortunately, you got to try to squeeze as much as you can so you don't have the price points. Like you still want to try to be in the twos, but it's Wildwood, so you probably are going to be hitting the threes and maybe even fours.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
So you guys been around me for quite a while. Like when we're talking about analyzing deals, like what do you see that I look into? Like when we're analyzing a deal, what is my main key points?
I would say, I mean, entry point is definitely number one. If it's too expensive from the start, the numbers are never going to work. You have a pretty good understanding of where the per lot is going to fall. So for the people that don't really understand this, most developments are pretty much Kylie can allude to go further detail into this, but it's basically a 50-50 split in between the single family housing lots and the duplex, basically like two kind of single family houses merged together. I don't know, those are typically between what, Kylie, 200 to 280 per lot for the single family and 120 to 150 for the duplex, and you kind of reverse engineer the numbers backwards. Depends on how much rock there is on the property, how much, just how, like there's different elements to it, but like how many trees there are, like, how much horizontal you're going to have to really, do. But a lot of them are probably relatively similar from a per acreage standpoint of what the horizontal is going to be, and kind of reverse engineer it all backwards.
Yeah, so we do reverse our numbers. That's one of the first things we do. So, and you got to go off of estimates. So cost is first and foremost, and then the UMR report, I would say, is definitely second, because you want to know how fast that's going to sell, because you don't want to be holding, a $20 million bag for too long. Obviously, that's very costly. And if the takedown schedule is not quick enough, then it's probably not a viable project. So look at the numbers first. Numbers are always super important. And it goes back, and they've said it from day one. It's not like we're inventing anything new, but you make your money when you purchase the property. Don't get me wrong, like you can save money throughout the process, but you're not going to save a ton. The vertical is the vertical, the horizontal cost is the horizontal cost, and the land cost is the land cost. There's not much you can change there. Yeah, you can nickel and dime it, but it's not going to change a lot.
And then I think, as far as aside from the numbers making sense, like we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, like we just look at all of those other things. Like, but Kylie, I guess another question that I have is, why does it matter to you? Like, I kind of going back to your question to us, like, how do we see you choose land and evaluate land? I think also it depends on the situation, because let's say if you were working with a new builder, and I know, like, for people that have been following us, and people that have had conversations with us, they've heard us use the word pre-sold like 100,000 times. But you can like a deal that's pre-sold, but still that piece of paper with the signature on it's only as good as the company backing it. So on that, like, it's also very important that the builder that you're working with, right, the people that are buying the lots, are actually good for it. I know in the case of Fisher Homes, like you're pretty chummy with the guys over there, but like, how do you evaluate a company that is actually signing off on an executed lot purchase agreement? Like, what sort of things do you look at it about that company to decide, yes, I want to do business with these people?
Well, first and foremost, you look at the reputation, you look at the reviews. So you just see stuff that's on the face of everything. Once you do that, though, once you're in the market, start going interviewing people that work with them. Go, and you're going to be in the same market. So anybody that's worked with them on the horizontal side, or developers, like Houston Homes, they've worked with them. There's a bunch of other people out there locally that's worked with them. But a bunch of developers, get their feedback. What are they saying? Have they ever shorted them? Have they ever stopped payments? Like, what's their general feedback? But I am, what do you want to call it, chummy with them a little bit. So I'm friendly with most of their team, so I don't ever expect that. I'm not saying it can't happen, but if they do something like that to one of their best developers that develops most of their stuff for them, they're putting themselves in a bad position. Not saying the market wouldn't change, but why would you do that to one of your best developers? I would never do that to my best home builder,
Yeah. If that did happen, who do you think would, like, let's just take that Chesterfield land that we talk a lot about. If it weren't Fisher, if Fisher had to back out for whatever reason, who do you think would step in and buy it? Like, do we have other people just kind of trying to get their hands on our deals? Would we develop it? Like, just hypothetically, what do you think would happen with that one?
That's what I was going to say, the latter of what you just suggested. So obviously we prefer to develop it, hands down. Now, it might make sense to sell certain lots off to, like, McKelvey built a subdivision right down the road. They sold their houses almost identical for what we're building on average for 1.7 million. Lombardo, same thing, a little bit smaller, about the same size, actually same size as what we're building. They just sold all their homes. They averaged 1.1 million on the single family home. So yeah, Lombardo, McKelvey that would buy it in a second. Fisher and Fitchell, they're a local builder. They built my personal house. But there's a bunch of them. There's a couple of them I wouldn't sell to either, though, just because their quality isn't there and I don't want my reputation tied to their reputation. So
Understood.
That's huge to me.
So can you talk a little bit more about, look, let me ask you this. Is the only reason that you're working with Fisher Homes because they're kind of serving up these deals on a silver platter? I mean, what's stopping you from just developing some of these parcels yourself?
Oh, well, we are developing some of them ourselves. So we already are working on that. And we got a bunch of other stuff that, I know we're doing the fund, but they're outside the fund that we've been working on for many years. There's nothing stopping me. Like, we're expanding tremendously. So, and I know you guys haven't seen the whole pipeline. Like, we should probably do a podcast of everything we're doing on pipeline and like what's that, what that looks like, so people understand what we're speaking about a little bit more. But we have over 20 deals that are in the pipeline that nobody's heard about. That's outside of the 13 active ones we're working on. So, and as I get a couple, and I'm not going to say their names here right now, but a couple more people on our team in the next 30, 60 days, one of them starts Monday, which is awesome. But we got a couple other people that are, rock stars in this industry that, handle the horizontal construction, which takes a lot off my plate. And yeah, people handle the vertical construction that takes tremendous off my plate as well, which that'll allow us to focus in and start expanding nationwide. We're headed over to North Carolina very shortly and then Texas.
Yeah. And I know I know you've got a busy schedule today, Kylie. How much more time we got? I think another like 10 minutes or so. So as we wrap, I think I just want to share an observation, since I've been working on this team, like, I've seen that you've had the vision, like you're a dude who's grounded in his values and you get shit done. But one of the things that I've seen that has just been key in your success, and I'm assuming like this has been a part of your success all along, is finding good people and just kind of delegating tasks off your plate so you can focus on, I was talking about this in your office the other day. Like, I was just like, I want to, like, whatever I can do so that you can focus on the highest revenue generating activities. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, that's just, you finding these people is just been so paramount. And I just wanted to share that because, like, the only way to do this at scale, the only way to have the economy of scale leaning in your favor is if you have like systems and like people under you. Like you said, you have a team of people like seeking out these properties, these brokers that actually know what boxes need to be checked. Not only that, like, you couldn't possibly, if we had 20 active projects, how could you possibly manage all of those and trying to strike deals with other home builders? There's just not enough hours in the day.
No, absolutely not. Especially with us handling the vertical aspect on some of them as well. It's just overwhelming. And then, you got to put together all the financing and a million other things going along with that, with the fund and everything. So yeah, it's beyond full time.
And I'm not going to poke and prod as far as who these additional team members are, but could you share, like, specifically what are these next pieces that you are offloading off of your plate with these new hires in the next 30 to 45 days?
Well, we already have a lot of the horizontal side in place, but let me explain that a little more in depth. So me finding properties, I'm not saying I won't be part of the process at all, but I won't be needed at all. Some of the brokers we have working with us right now, they're amazing. We have a group of like 5 different teams outside of our main and side people. So once I have these few people that are coming over from some of the major home builders and major companies that have been in the industry for, last 10 to 25 years, the horizontal side, I really won't have to be part of at all. So that means finding the land, getting it entitled, which is so timely because, you spend 12 months on average getting it entitled. And then the horizontal construction, you want a project manager and everything has to be systematic. So, if you're new to the industry, trying to go do a development might take you a year and a half, where if you have a great team in place, like Bear Construction or some of those teams, you can get it done in 6 months or less because they could do things systematically. They could handle the grading while putting in utilities, but I will be removed from all of that, which I'll still want to go check it out because it's our projects. But once I'm removed from that 100%, then you still have the vertical aspect and you have financing, you have growing the business.
So magic wand situation, like, let's just imagine everything is set up in your company the way that you want it. And this is like the version of your company who's kind of nearly at where you want to be. What is your dream role in that situation? Like, what piece do you want to play in this company as far as like throughput goes?
Well, I'd like to be pretty much at the end product, like where I've already helped design everything. Like I like the design aspect of the homes, like we were doing yesterday. I had the architect here, the outside architect here, and then my agents, real estate agents. Because you got to remember, it's not just me at all. There's tremendous amount of people that are on the team. Then my internal staff and the real estate agents here. Then there are a guy that's joined the team in about 30 or 45 days. So I would love to be in a position where, I can still oversee all the new build process where I'm not babysitting it. I have my GC in place, but I get to see what the final product looks like, make sure there's no issues, make sure that I meet pretty much every client. I think that's cool, honestly, because they get by their new home, like go shake their hand, which obviously if we're in different states, that won't happen, but it'd be cool to meet a lot of them that are local for sure.
Yeah. And I think
focusing on the financing as well. Obviously that's huge.
Yeah. With that, I mean, because I know we've got how many projects in Missouri? 12?
Well, between Missouri and Florida right now, there's 13.
Okay.
It's changed a little bit because, we've got a couple that dropped, but, it's just part of the entitlement process.
You mean there was some projects in Florida that weren't going to be able to get entitled like per the plans? Is that what you mean?
No, Missouri. So Florida, 3 of them are already cranking. And I think you already know we're working on 4 more, but I don't include the ones that are in the initial negotiation phases. So those aren't part of that.
And the reason that I bring it up is, like you've got to have, how do you look at stuff in Florida? You're in Missouri. How do you steer that ship remotely?
That's all back down to team members that you can trust and rely on that are amazing at what they do. Honestly, the guy we have down there, he's great at what he does. And, I think he's a rock star in industry. He's actually better at sales than I am. I think I'm really good at phone sales, but he's just got one of those personalities. Like he's just great at speaking with people. You can make him laugh and, don't get me wrong. He's still a pain in many other ways, but he's great at selling people. Great at it.
That's awesome. So bottom line, you just got to have good people. You got to have systems in place. And
people's everything, man. Everything.
Yeah. I mean, if it were like one-offs, if you were doing one at a time, like, is that something that someone can handle on their own? Would that still be considered a full-time job? Because it seems like a lot of this is like,
yeah.
So yes, I guess that.
Absolutely. Would you just go do one project, even if it's just, I hate saying it, but you could build 2 homes or 150 homes. It feels like it's almost the same amount of work. And I know people are like, well, that's a tremendous difference. Well, the entitlement process, there's not much difference at all. Like, honestly, it's almost identical. Now, yeah, obviously when you get that horizontal engaged, it's just putting in more of it. It's not like it's a big difference. It's just cost difference. And timing's a little bit longer. Not much difference though.
I guess I imagined a lot of the entitlement process, like, because when you think about 12 to 18, sometimes 2 entire years to get a parcel entitled, it seems to me that a lot of that is just making sure you hurry up and move the parts that you can move so that you can get it on someone else's desk as soon as possible. And then for how long that piece of paper is sitting on their desk, who knows? It's really just like controlling what you can control. Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah. So and just to give you one quick example. So Lewis Road over there in Eureka, one we're working on, that's going to be 37 custom homes or maybe 36 now. We haven't been able to do anything with it. We haven't been able to submit it to city or nothing because the fire department that the owner actually sold off 3 acres, but he donated 1 of the acres. We haven't been able to get them to work with us, which I made a final proposal to them the other day. I think they're going to accept it, but they won't sell it to us. They wouldn't let us do anything with it. We were trying to actually handle everything for them, grade it, remove all the trees, get it all site prep for them so they have sanitary water, everything. And I guess their Prop F failed here locally, so they couldn't get the financing to build the fire station. So they're like, we're just going to sit on it, and that kind of screwed us over because we were going to lose like 11 lots. So it killed that deal. It's taken us a year, like 3 weeks from now. It'll be about a year. So I finally made a proposal to them. I said, hey, listen, we don't want to buy your lot. We don't want to buy your land. This is what we want to do. And it took us forever to think of this, but we want to revamp where your 3 acres is. So we're going to put you at the southern portion of our land. We're going to pay for, all the plats, all of the surveys, everything else. With that, we're going to give you $100,000 donation. We're going to give you $100,000. We're not purchasing your land. We're just going to reconfigure it, and we'll still give you access to sanitary and water.
So you're basically just offering them to, you're just putting the cherry on top on the entitlement process on their behalf, pretty much?
Well, absolutely, because we can't lose 11 lots. That kills the project. So, if they agree to it, which I think they will, we've already met with the head chief and everything else like that and their attorney. Sounds like they're going to agree to it, but until they do, we're just going to keep moving forward. But we're actually finally getting our first city council meeting supposedly in January. But it's taken 1 year to get to this point. Luckily, we have, 20 other projects going on that we're working on. So it's not like that's horrible, but if that's the only project we're working on, yeah, that's horrible. And that is a full-time job. But again, back to what you said, Daniel. finding great people is crucial. And I know you guys might, whatever you want to believe on this, I pray over everybody that I bring onto my team, even you guys. I only want great people on my team, and I leave it to the Lord to make that decision for me. So, that's just my 2 words of wisdom. Took me many years to figure that out, though. And it takes a lot of stress off your plate when you leave it to him.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm definitely stoked to be here. And I'm just really excited to see kind of what's on the horizon for this company, and just kind of, being as involved as I can. But really, really solid conversation today, guys. I'm thinking like, what the next one should be about.
Well, I will have to jump off here. So, Andrew, before we jump off, you got any last words you want to throw in, or any questions?
No, not a lot. I mean, you're the specialist in this arena, and I think it's always good to hear from you and how you make all the magic happen. So appreciate your wisdom, and excited.
It's gonna be good, guys.
Have the next one.
Excited for you guys to be part of the team, and if you guys don't have anything else, Daniel, anything else?
I'm good. Awesome.
Well, we're gonna jump off here. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Next time, I think probably a week from now. Hopefully, we don't have to skip a session. So if we don't chat with you, God bless. Have a great weekend, and we'll chat with you soon. Thanks, guys.